Hello everyone, welcome to Pussy, Mind and Soul. My name is Sophia Thome and this is a podcast for conscious entrepreneurs. This is a podcast for people who want to live free and who also want to create their business in a way that fits to them and that is maybe a little bit more spiritual. Today we have someone very, very spiritual in the show. His name is Kyle Lipton, and maybe you know him from his amazing, funny reels on Instagram, or where he uses humor to shine light on some shadow aspects of a spiritual community, or So I want to tell you really briefly what we talk about in the show, so you know what's gonna happen now. We talk about humor. Definitely. We talk about trusting your intuition and living a more unconventional lifestyle, because I asked him about his life and oh boy, that's what he did. And make sure to stay until the end, because in the end he gives me a psychic reading for this podcast. So I asked him, what's the future of this podcast? What's gonna happen? What can you see here? So I hope you enjoy this show. I hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you so much for watching. And of course, if you enjoy my content here, if you enjoy listening to the conversation, I would appreciate your support. Send this to all your friends who it could be interesting for. Give me likes and share and all of it. No? Thank you. Bye. So, hello and welcome. This is a new episode of Pussy, Mind and Soul. My name is Sophia Thome and I'm not alone. But here is, live from Peru, Kyle Lipton. Welcome to this podcast, Kyle.
Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here with you.
Okay, cool. We just said that we're just going to start talking, and we hope that our conversation is going to be very interesting and maybe a little bit inspirational and motivational for everyone out there. So let me just check in what's going to be the first question. Shall I start with something like calm, or shall I go right in? What do you want?
Whatever you want to do. Let's go.
Okay, so I want to talk about humor with you, because that's like your videos are so funny, and I always hope you make more, because I have so much fun watching your videos. I'm gonna link my favorite ones in the description. And is humor always a coping mechanism? Can it also be just like a creative expression? Or when we are very funny with things, are we always hiding something that we should actually look at and it's just so hard to face it? What do you think? What's the shadow side of humor? And is there one, or can it also be just very pure?
It can definitely be very pure. I mean, if humor was just a coping mechanism, then I guess my whole life would be a coping mechanism, which I don't think is the case. To me, humor is alchemy. Humor is a way to alchemize. It's a way to see the world. It's a way to look at things and put a perspective on it that might make you feel a little different. I think humor actually, and I've gotten a lot of feedback on this from whatever my videos to doing a show, I can actually make humor and point out shadows in a way that isn't so intense or serious. And I think so often especially in the spiritual community, we can be so serious about, I need to do the work, nothing is funny. And what really helped me is realizing, okay, why are we on the spiritual path? And when you go to the end of it, you probably want to laugh a little bit more. You want to have more fun. You want to be similar to maybe how you were as a kid, playful, free, joyful. So why would you try and be serious the whole time just to try and come back to a state of playful, joyful? So I like to start there. And there's definitely ways that you can hide or cope or, be in the shadow of humor. But for me, I feel very confident that I've definitely done it. But if you're willing to look at yourself, if you're willing to be honest with yourself, life can still be so humorous. I can laugh my ass off and then cry a tear from some inspirational video that I see later that day. And you don't need to suppress yourself to find humor in life. Humor is part of expression. It's like poetry. This is the last thing I'll say, right? Poetry is a way to express yourself. Poetry is a way to see the world. And humor is a way to see the world. It's a way to express yourself. And it's also a way to transform your life and to transform your perspective and realize that life doesn't have to be this super serious, I got to align all my chakras before 5 a.m. and then go in a cold plunge type mindset or type mentality.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I just got something that in my very first job where I worked, I was so proud to have this job in the fashion industry. I thought, now I'm living my dream. I'm doing it. My boss once gave me the feedback that I'm too funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that was also the moment, where I really started questioning, am I too funny? Should I not make a joke now? But I think it's so nice what you said, that yes, if you are like this, enjoy how you are and be confident in it. Yeah. So how did you start how did you get into, like, how did you develop this humorous approach to also put light on shadows also in the spiritual world? Have you always been like a very funny person, or have you had a moment where you're like, oh my God, that's I need to show this somehow and this could be it? Like, how did you start this?
So before I answer that, I want to speak on what you were saying about how your boss was telling you that you were too funny. And what I love to say is don't try and fit in somewhere. Be fully yourself and see where you naturally fit in. And I think humor and being fully expressed is a way to filter almost who is and who isn't meant to be in our life. But to answer your question, I I've pretty much been funny all my life. My dad was a very funny man.
Born funny?
Born funny. Um, Someone told me one time, which I really appreciated. She said, I channeled God's funny bone. And I really like that. Funny bone is like the part of your elbow that when you hit it, it's usually not that funny. You hit that part and you're like, oh my God, that feels very strange. But so yeah, in high school I was voted. I don't know if it's the same in Germany, but we had a yearbook, and I was voted the class clown. So I was kind of always mischievous and rebellious, but I got really obsessed with personal development around the age of 16. And the thing that I really appreciate is I never lost my sense of humor. I could see the funny in all of this, and the more I just trusted my intuition and observed life when I went into these spiritual communities and gatherings. And, I've learned so much from it, and I'm so grateful. And I've had so many beautiful experiences and workshops and events. And at the same time, I can definitely laugh at the fact that, there's people jumping up and down, getting inside of ice, screaming at the top. There is something funny about the whole personal development, spiritual development journey. And I can honor that and also honor the seriousness of it and the transformational benefits of it. It doesn't have to be one or the other, which is hard for some people to grasp.
Yeah, and I think this is what is really cool about your content, that at the one hand you make fun of it, but you also take it seriously and you're also part of it, nah?
For sure.
You don't make fun of it to minimize it or to bash it or to you make fun of it to show that it's also funny, but it's also amazing. Yeah.
It's too, I mean, I've been supporting people for almost a decade in transformation, so I definitely don't just look at it and go, this is all I really believe in everything that I do, and I really believe in the transformation I bring to my clients and that I've seen in my own life. And I think humor is a great way to cut through the bullshit and the fluff, because there's a lot of that. There's a lot of people just going in circles and circles and circles, and that just, I hate it. That's why I love what I do, because I love to pierce through the bullshit and get straight to the core of what's going on, so that the person can actually transform and enjoy their life instead of going on this kind of endless roller coaster of I need to fix myself, I need to better myself, I need to do another ayahuasca ceremony. There's nothing wrong with those things, but when it becomes this sort of infinite circle where you feel like you can never really just enjoy life, I would question how much you're actually growing.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And so, what does your work look like? How do you work? What's your job?
So I combine psychic readings and transformational sessions. So someone can come to me and whether they're going through a relationship issue, whether they are wanting to up level in their business, whether they have an emotional challenge that they haven't been able to get past, I love to bridge the practical and the mystical. So if someone comes into a session with me, I can see what's going on. I can help them shift, but I don't want someone to leave a session with me and go, Archangel Michael touched my shoulder, right? No, I want to give someone practical, clear steps to embody whatever the shift is they're trying to create in their life. So I'll give you a good example. I had a client of mine 3, 4 years ago, and she had came to me and she hadn't gotten her menstrual cycle, her period, in a year. And one of the things that I saw in our session was that there was a part of her that was disconnected from her own femininity. So once I saw that and recognized that, I helped her practically in a way that was grounded, start to get more in touch with it. And then 2 weeks later, she messages me. She's like, Kyle, I was sitting on my meditation cushion and they're white, and I just looked down and there's blood everywhere. And I was like, amazing, hallelujah. And I can't obviously take full credit for that, but hopefully I played a small part. And I think transformation can be a lot more simple than we make it out to be.
Hmm. Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Can we talk a bit more about the psychic reading part? Because I think it's very interesting.
for
Uh,
sure.
what is it and how have you learned it?
Uh, well, a psychic it's, I think we're all psychic, first of all. And we just wake up more and more to that ability. For example, maybe you've been on a walk. Maybe you're walking through, some street in Germany or some street in Brazil or some street in Peru, somewhere. And your intuition tells you, make a left. And you don't know why, but you trust it. And then you realize that you bumped into someone when you made that left turn that changed your life. So uh, that's first and foremost. I think everyone is psychic, everyone is intuitive. How I started to wake up to that, I had a mentor who shared with me one of the ways to awaken to your intuition is to practice trusting your first thought. So I practiced it. And it could be as simple as like, Kyle, get up and go to the grocery store. And I'd go, well, I don't need anything from the grocery store. But I trusted it. And I remember the moment when I really realized I could trust it. I was hanging out with one of my friends in Santa Monica, California, and we're walking, and I saw this vision in my mind of literally it was his soul being strangled. I saw this vision of like two hands over his soul's throat. And I shared that with him. And when I shared that with him, his eyes got all white. He was like, whoa, man, this is weird. But he also acknowledged like his throat was feeling very tight. And once I really continued to practice that, I started to see, hey, I can really trust this. And I've had so many moments where I just trusted my intuition and life got better. And I believe our intuition is like it's like God whispering in our ear something. And I don't think that God, source, the divine, whatever you want to call it, would whisper something in our ear to make our life worse. I think we would only get a message to make our life better, even if it's a scary fucking leap, right? Like I've traveled the world. I remember I traveled the world on like $50, didn't have any money coming in, didn't know where my next paycheck was going to come, but I trusted. And in that month and in those few months, I made more money than I ever did. But it took me going to the edge of my own fear and being willing to trust the divine instead of my fear that has gifted me with so many beautiful experiences. And it gives me a level of authority to tell someone else to take that leap because I've done it myself and I continue to do it. It's not, I read a couple Abraham Hicks books and I say, I believe you should believe too, right? This is how we become leaders, is we embody the change that we wish to see in the world, which then gives us more authority and more trustworthiness to be able to help people in that way.
Mm.
Yeah.
Trustworthiness also because we can trust ourselves because we have experienced it, and also with like toxic marketing, like and also in the spiritual scene in the last years, there came to light some things, nah? And in the end, we only ourselves we know if we are acting in integrity or not. And
Yep.
yeah, cool. So, and the psychic readings, I'm asking just out of I do now this. I trust my first thing, and I don't know if anyone cares about this question, but I do. Can you do it? Probably now you've practiced it a lot, nah? But is it harder or in the beginning, was it harder for you to do it with people who you knew very well or who you were very close with? Like, because I'm awakening some things and it's so easy for me to do it with strangers. But when I have like my partner, I see nothing. I don't know.
Mm. Uh, no, it's not harder for me.
Yeah.
Um, but there's also, how do I want to say this? You might not be getting a message or a psychic sort of reading for your partner because maybe you're not meant to give him a message, right? And I would trust that.
Yeah.
And I might have moments where my intuition tells me, don't share this with. I might get a message about someone, but my intuition tells me don't share that with them. It's not something they need to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And I trust that because I don't want to assert myself into someone's space if I don't feel that they're open to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and you live in Peru at the moment, you said. This wonderful brick wall behind you is a Peruvian brick wall.
You know what? It's actually funny. It's so hilarious because before I rented this apartment, I thought it was a brick wall, but it's actually just a wallpaper that looks like a brick wall. But
Okay.
it's still pretty cool.
Yeah. And but how did you decide to live in Peru? Like why Peru? How did you get there for the first time? What did you like about it?
That's a great question. It really happened kind of spontaneously. So it's been a very interesting life. I had a partner of mine, her and I were together, but we had broken up, but we still had a lease for like 2 more weeks for an apartment we had rented in Mexico. So we were living together, which was kind of interesting. And she said, "Hey, I'm going to Peru." And I thought to myself, I was like, should I stay here in Mexico? Should I go with her? And literally about maybe 3 to 5 hours, I don't remember exactly, before the flight, I booked a ticket. I literally bought a ticket like so last minute, um, and got to Peru. We like officially parted ways about 2 weeks after getting to Peru. And I just fell in love with it. It was beautiful. It was amazing. It was calming. And I'm a very I would say I'm a very minimalist type person. I don't like having a lot of things. I'm very nomadic in the sense that if I can travel with the smallest suitcase and the smallest backpack and have 5 t-shirts, and I love it. And enjoy it here. I really enjoy seeing the mountains and how ancient it is, but also, I'm not away from internet, as you can tell, and I'm still able to order food and have some modern convenience. Um, so that is initially what led me here to Peru, and then I left for a while, and yeah, through life and synchronicity, here I am again.
Cool. So yeah, you seem to live um an unconventional life if we compare it with something normal, ne?
For sure.
And I'm wondering, has it always been? No, it was probably not. But how did you become uh confident in being yourself, like you can sit in the internet and say I'm a psychic medium. You can move to Peru. Like I'm sure there's a narrow-minded person somewhere in some area of your life who told you before, what the fuck are you doing? And how did you manage to not believe them and to, you know, more and more be confident in going your own way, your own path, and also not hiding it and not being in a spiritual closet, not feeling shame about what you like and who you are? And yeah, because if maybe someone is listening who feels like, oh yeah, I want to unlock another layer for that, do we have an advice?
I love how many questions you ask in one question. I feel like there's so many little questions in that. So I will answer all of them to the best of my ability, and if I missed one, please remind me.
I ask again.
Okay. So I would say, well, first question was, how did I become confident in myself? I would say it's been a process, a continual process of trusting myself, of kind of throwing myself into the unknown, putting myself in positions that sort of forced me to grow, whether that be taking a leap and traveling the world and having no money and not knowing where the next paycheck was going to come from, but knowing that God was calling me to go somewhere, to workshops or events that I went to that challenged me, or, you know, plant medicine, like whatever the case may be. I've pretty much always lived an unconventional life after high school, I would say. You know, I dropped out of college. University, as they call it in Europe. And it was interesting because you said people telling me, you know, like, what the fuck are you doing? And I never had anything that strong. But when I dropped out of college, my parents were both a little bit like, what are you doing? Are you sure? And I had a, I actually worked a very kind of unconventional job for someone that I admired, a sort of online entrepreneur who I thought was super amazing and was kind of an online mentor. I synchronistically got a job to work for him, and I dropped out of college. I said, fuck this. Why would I want to have a business teacher that drives a, you know, 2002 Honda? Is that person really qualified to teach me about business? So I dropped out. I got this job, and it was just amazing. And my parents saw, okay, Kyle knows what he's talking about. It's okay. We don't need to give him more advice. And yeah, and I think by me showing up and trusting myself, I gained and established more trust from those around me. So what I would say, and to customize this advice for maybe other people, don't try and gain someone's trust by not trusting yourself. Right? It doesn't work. You can't limit yourself and not listen to your intuition so that someone trusts you. Right? That's your fear playing with their fear. I invite anyone to go through the maybe uncomfortable process of having people look at you and go, what the fuck? You know, when it comes to coming out of the spiritual closet, I'll give you a great example. In 2019, when people would ask me what I did, more or less, depending on the person, I might say, I'm kind of like a life coach, right? But I could feel I was saying that out of fear of not scaring someone. And then I remember I made a decision, you know, if we want to make magic normal, if we want to make the supernatural mainstream or normal, whatever you want to call it, you have to act like it's normal. You can't act like it's something you need to hide or be ashamed of. The more open you are about it, the more normal it becomes in this society. And I remember I was living in New York City. I'm there with my neighbor. We're in an elevator together, and we were just kind of starting to get to know each other. And he looks at me and he goes, so Kyle, what do you do? And I remember there was a split second moment where I could either tell him this sort of phony, I'm kind of like a life coach out of fear answer, but I looked him straight in the eyes and I said, I'm a comedian, I'm a psychic, and I'm a hypnotist. And he looks at me and he's like, cool. I might want to get a session from you. And the last thing that I'll say, just to come full circle here, is if you're a coach, a healer, a service provider, a business owner, if you're willing to come fully out of the closet with that, it's kind of like you're putting a little dot on GPS and you're telling people, here's where to find me. I'm a psychic. If you need a psychic, I'm here. And I can't really let someone know that I'm a psychic or a healer or whatever the case may be unless I'm willing to tell them that and own it. And yeah, That would be my advice and what I would say.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
I
You're
take
welcome.
it, your advice. You mentioned it 2 times now. That's why I want to ask about it deeper. Can you tell us about your crazy time when you traveled with no money and you just trusted God? How was that? Where did you go and where did you travel away from?
Okay. So get your popcorn out. This is quite the story.
Story
Uh,
time.
so this was, what year was this? I think it was the end of 2017. I had a Facebook friend. Her name was Stephanie, and she was getting her training in mediumship. And she posted this Facebook status that said, I'm giving away 50 medium readings to practice. And I had never received a medium reading up until that point. And in our session, she tells me, you're going to have a really powerful activation in England. I had never heard that before in my life. And I'm getting chills even as I talk about it. So we had our reading, and this was maybe November of 2017, sometime around there. Maybe 6 months later, in February, that math doesn't work well. It was probably a little bit earlier than November, but anyways, not important. In February, it was February 2nd, I had a girlfriend who was actually German. She was living in Berlin, and something in my intuition told me, because I was supposed to see her at the end of February, but something in my intuition just told me, Kyle, look at tickets right now. And I saw a one-way ticket, which was $180, which was so cheap to go from LA to Germany. The only problem was, there's a few, the only problem was it was leaving in 2 days instead of at the end of February. And I had a $300 credit card and about no other money to my name. I booked this flight, and I remember I had so much excitement and so much like energy moving through my body after I made that decision. And I also decided I was going to go surprise her, which, you're from German culture and you can understand that maybe doing something out of a German person's routine or schedule or plans can be quite unsettling for the culture. But so I booked that flight, and it was interesting because I didn't know where money was going to come from. But literally the next day, I had a client sign up. I had no plans. It was literally like I had to make that first step, that first decision, and it unlocked all of this flow. So, anyways, I get to Germany. I surprise my then girlfriend. And this was another crazy, crazy part. There was someone that I had gifted a free session to 2 weeks before who lived in Berlin. And now that I was in Berlin, she actually signed up and did a whole 8-hour VIP kind of experience with me. I didn't know I was going to see the woman that I had a Zoom call with a month later, randomly in person, which is so cool. And I think that the divine sets up little sort of chess pieces, certain people they put on our path that if we continue to follow it, all of these synchronicities start to unlock. So fast forward, I had spent basically about all of my money in Germany that month. And I had a client who was supposed to sign up the day that my flight was. And I was sort of counting on it because I had about $50 to my name after booking my flight, which is crazy. And I just had this gut feeling that this woman was going to tell me that she's going to back out of our mentoring. And she did. And I remember, as soon as she backed out, I felt this frustration come over me. And I remember telling myself, I remember hearing this intuitive voice that said, Kyle, go make a Facebook Live right now, channel this anger and frustration, and go just create some content. So I go and I make this video. As soon as the video ends, my intuition tells me, click to see who liked your video. So I click it, and it leads me to a guy who I had met one time at an event who owns a wine company in California. Clicked on his profile. I don't know why. My spirit told me to. And his first, so I was, for context, I was heading from Germany to London. And I clicked on his profile, and the first post that I see is, me and my team are here at the Raw Wine Festival in London. And mind you, this man lives in California. So I'm sitting here like, this is a crazy synchronicity. I reached out to him. He's like, great, when you're here, let me know. And me and my team will all go out for dinner together. And I'll never forget, I get through customs. I'll save you kind of the longer story there. But I paid, I think, £12 to get on the bus out of my $50 that I had, which was like 1/3 of my net worth at the time. And I get to a cafe called Pret a Manger, and I'm texting with him. And I remember WhatsApping him and saying, thanks a lot, man. I've been going through a really hard time. So you taking me out for this dinner really means a lot. And I'll never forget the next message he sent me. He said, do you need any help? And I remember just pausing and going, okay, there's the masculine pride that I have that wants to say, I'm fine, everything's okay, I'm good. And then there was my honest, vulnerable answer, which was, I do need help. And I remember I said, I do need help. And I don't even think I specified what kind of help I needed. I just said, yeah. And he goes, meet me at my hotel tomorrow. I'm going to give you £500. This is like day one in London after making this big leap. And I remember being in an elevator with him. He's got this big black trench coat. Guy that I met one time just puts the money in my hand kind of discreetly. And when I tell you, synchronicity after synchronicity happened. So that happened. And I remember before that, I was on a plane coming to London, and I'm journaling. Like, I'm freaking out a little bit. I'm in my scarcity, but I'm just writing, I exude abundance and luxury with every step and breath I take, just writing it. And funnily enough, he ends up taking me out to all of the coolest, most five-star restaurants in London. And I'm seeing what a beautiful reflection of what was just in my mind and what I was just putting out into the universe. And just the craziest synchronicities were happening. I remember one moment I was spending a month in Bali in London, and my fiance, or my girlfriend at the time, said, because we're going to go to Bali the next month, she said, when do you want to book our tickets? And I remember being on this phone call. I think I had about $500 at the time, which wasn't enough, but it was close to cover my ticket. And something in my spirit, I was a little bit afraid. I was like, I don't know if I can commit to making this decision. So maybe on a Monday we had this call, but my whole spirit just said, make a decision and just decide. And I said, great, let's book our tickets on Thursday. Hang up the phone, open my Facebook Messenger. I get 4 messages from a guy who I had met, who had been in one of my free programs. And he said, dude, I just had a medium reading, and the medium told me there was a guy named Kyle who was supposed to help me with my emotional challenges. That Thursday, he signs up to be a client of mine. And I had all the money I needed and so much more for all of my travels. And when I tell you, crazy, I had a mentor randomly send me money. I don't even think he knew what I was going through. And he just says, keep your head up and keep your heart open. All of these synchronicities that had happened from people, places, and circumstances I didn't even expect. And funnily enough, I made more money in my business that month than I ever did in my entire life up until that point, which was so fascinating. And to just put a cherry on top of the story and to end it, the medium that gave me that psychic reading lived in Las Vegas in Nevada. She just so happened to be in London at the same time as me doing a mediumship training, and we got to hang out and have lunch after the craziest month that I had after she told me I was going to have this powerful activation. So after that point and after that story, I really realized it's so safe to trust your heart. It's so safe to trust your intuition, and life only gets better when you do it.
That's a wonderful story. Yeah. Wow. And it's also now that you know and that you came out of it alive. It's nice to say. Well, it's easy to trust your heart, but I wanted to ask this, and you also mentioned it, that how did you feel during that time? Did you feel ecstasy, abundance 24/7, or how did you feel?
Oh, fuck no. So, I mean, just to put it into perspective, when I was on the bus from the airport, I was fucking crying my eyes out. I was freaked out. I was shaking. I was nervous, but I didn't let those temporary feelings have me making decisions from fear, right? And I could be fearful, I could be scared, but I can still go, but I'm going to trust my intuition because that's the only way out of this.
Mm-hmm.
So I had all kinds of fears and all kinds of shit pop up in the process, but I just continued to lean into trusting that voice that told me, go this way, do this. And that, funnily enough, took me out of those scary feelings and brought me into more abundance. But I definitely had to trust and move through that fear. And it was definitely was intense in moments.
Mm. Okay. That's so good for me to hear, because I think I misunderstood this for some time. I thought that I'm doing it wrong, because if I would do the work right, it means that even the most scary situation, like I'm above this, I'm like, I make I gaslight myself until I just feel fabulous.
Right. I I don't know if gaslighting yourself and feeling fabulous are they make sense to go together in a sentence. I
Yeah.
gaslit myself till I just felt amazing.
Yeah. But really cool story. What's the difference of a medium and a psychic? Because you said you were going to a medium, but you describe yourself as a psychic.
Yeah. So a medium is someone who mostly communicates with someone's deceased family members or friends or people close to them. And a psychic is someone who can read energy, can tune into you, can receive messages about you. It's less about using, for me at least, another family member or friend, and it's more about going directly to God, to source, and using that as my medium to communicate.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, what else do I want to ask? Yeah. Um, can we talk a bit about so how do you um I want to talk a bit about the shadows of the industry that you are also shining light on. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, where are you at the moment inside yourself, with seeing the things that are maybe not so nice about some areas or some corners of the spiritual community?
You know, at this point in my journey, I stay in my own lane. I stay in my own space. I mostly just concentrate on what I'm doing, what's moving me forward, what I believe in, what I trust, and I don't go to places or gatherings or things that feel out of alignment. It's not that there's anything wrong with them. It's not, but to answer your question, I do see a lot of shadow. I do see a lot of, for example, I see people mm, using spirituality to maybe justify behavior that is not in true alignment with them, but they gaslight themselves thinking that it is, right? Or just people showing up out of integrity, and but at the same time, what I have for every single person is I just have compassion, right? Because judging someone doesn't actually get them to change. If I can't love the same person that I'm judging, I'm no better than them. So for me, I just whoever it is, even if it's someone that feels like I made fun of them in one of my videos or whatever the case may be, they feel triggered. I can still sit with that person and love them and hear them. Doesn't mean I have to believe them. It doesn't mean I'm going to apologize for my creative art and expression, but I've come to a place inside myself where I can meet that person with love and non-judgment. Do I want to partake in every cacao ceremony ecstatic dance? No, I don't. But do I respect people that do that or that think that it's great for them in their time and their moment? And yeah, for sure. And if I feel like it's an alignment for me to go to a cacao ceremony, I'll totally go. So it's less about the event itself or the kind of event itself, and it's more about just how integrous are people showing up. Are you using spirituality to bring you closer to your soul, or are you using it to justify shitty behavior?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I want to know, so how can, like, now how do I say it? You posted recently a video from 6 years ago, and it was
Yeah.
already the thing that you're doing now, but it was more the beginning, né? And I found
Yeah.
that so beautiful because it showed that what we can see of you now is the result of years of practice and refinement of your art, né? And
Yeah.
I think many people have this problem, and I have it too, of impatience or of having unrealistic expectations about goals and about what can be possible with spiritual business or social media presence. And then maybe it works if we apply some strategy, but sometimes if we don't embody it and also as a person grow into the social media presence that's growing, it's an empty thing, né?
Mm-hmm.
So can you take us a bit into your journey of how did you get to become someone who's creating viral videos? Do I just have to buy an online course and then I can make it tomorrow? Or yeah, you now that you are there, what can you say to someone who says, I also want to find a way of making inspirational content that reaches many people, if it's something funny or whatever?
Hey, this is a very short pause for some advertisement, and I'm gonna do it in German because it's for a German product. If you don't wanna listen, then maybe just skip a little bit. Also, an alle deutschen Zuhörerinnen, mein erster Online-Kurs ist fertig und ready und ja, für euch bereit zum nicht nur kaufen, sondern vor allem auch durcharbeiten. Der ist jetzt bereit, dass ihr damit euer Leben verändern könnt. Es geht um die Pussy natürlich, es geht um Menstruationszyklus, Achtsamkeit. Ich habe damit 7 Jahre Erfahrung in meiner eigenen Praxis. Ich habe PMS richtig krass gehabt und habe das so selber in den Griff gekriegt. Und nein, die Lösung ist kein Mönchspfeffer oder irgendeine Tablette, sondern in meinem Fall war das ein bisschen was ganzheitlicheres. Und ich gebe auch Menstruationsworkshops für Unternehmen. Drückt mir die Daumen, dass ich dort richtig viel, ja, Pussy Power integrieren kann. Auf jeden Fall bei dem Workshop, da lernst du alles, was du lernen musst, dass du in Harmonie mit deinem Zyklus leben kannst. Weil ich habe die Theorie, dass das einfach ein geileres Leben ist. Dass wir als Frau nicht wirklich in unserer vollen Kraft, in unserem vollen Ausdruck, mit unserer vollen Power, dass wir nicht unser Best Life leben können, wenn wir einfach gegen unsere Natur leben und arbeiten. Und ich glaube, ganz, ganz viele Frauen strugglen mit ihrem Menstruationszyklus. Und wenn es dir auch so geht, ist das vielleicht interessant für dich.
Well, for just 5 easy payments of $99, you too can make viral videos. So I actually I run a group, and it's the 4th time I've run it. It's called Unleash Your Creativity, which is really all around how to get your best creative work out into the world. And we do it in 8 weeks. And one of the things that I love about it is one of the things that we were actually talking about yesterday was, can you show up even when you're not getting views? Can you show up when you're not getting likes? Can you show up when no one's there to pat you on the back and say you're being a great little boy or a great little girl? You're doing a great job. So many people, and I think the online world has sort of skewed people's perception, right? Like, well, this person just had their first $4,000 billion month, and I'm still, haven't got a client yet. If it's your passion, if it's something that you want to show up for regardless, you'll continue to show up. I remember being on live streams, and it's so humbling. You'll be on a live stream and 2 people will pop on, and then you're 5 minutes in, and then everyone just pops off. And you're just sitting there with 0 people, and you think to yourself, okay, do I jump off or do I continue my live stream? And there's been so many moments in my life where I would just continue my live stream. And what I would say, and I made a video about this last night actually, it's, can you combine rapidness and patience? And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Rapidness is when my intuition tells me to do something, am I willing to do it? You know, there's been so many instances in my life where I'll be getting ready for bed, I'll brush my teeth, taking my shower, about to put my head on the pillow, and my intuition says, get up right now and make a live stream. Or get up right now and and I'm just like, fuck, I'm so tired, I don't want to do this. But I trust my spirit. And after that, someone will go, I needed to see that video so badly, or I would love to work with you. How can we do it? Right? So that's rapidness. And patience is going, and however long it needs to take, I'm here. I'm available. I'm going to keep showing up. I'm compassionate with myself. So if you can combine those two things and you know, learn to speak from your heart, learn to share what I like to say abundance. A friend of mine shared this with me years ago. Abundance is being the abundance of yourself. So instead of trying to, you know, do another marketing strategy and do all of that, I don't think that's bad. But I think before that, what you need to check in with is, am I fully expressing myself? And the more that you can lean into that, the more synchronicity, the more magic, the more flow naturally starts to happen in your life because you are being that expression of self. I don't know if that fully answered your question, but that's what I would, and I've had to go through so many ups and downs in the process, but I'm here and I'm still here. And it took me, I kind of had an on and off relationship with comedy in the sense that I would do it, but then I would go, but I'm not making a lot of money from this. I'm not making any money from this. Let me focus on my mentoring and be more practical. But it was hilarious because the moment that I actually fully committed to doing comedy, I made more money than ever. More opportunities came to me from the thing that I thought wouldn't give me or wasn't making me money. Actually, when I fully committed to it and devoted myself to it, it made me the most money.
Yeah, that's nice. So
Yeah.
if this podcast now only 5 people are gonna listen, I'm gonna make a next one anyways. Yeah, but thank you for sharing. I think it's so important, and that's also why I want to have many people share their story here, because I think it's really important that we hear over and over again. If you're not there yet, it does not need to mean that you're doing something wrong or everything wrong, but it can be just part of your process and keep going.
Completely agree. Completely agree. And that is such a great point that you just made, which is, I like to make the distinction between pain and suffering, right? Pain might be like, like I will be a good example. I showed up and did a comedy show and no one laughed. Ooh, that felt painful. Suffering is, oh, you're not funny. Oh, you're a horrible person. Oh, your jokes aren't great. Oh, this isn't your, that's suffering. That's self-inflicted pain. So if you want to have more grace and more ease, don't be a bully to yourself in the process. Accept what is, and don't make it more than what it is.
Yeah. All right, so I have one more question.
Let's do it.
It's about the psychicness again. If you do this, maybe that's nothing that you do, but you said I'm allowed to ask all the questions. So can you read something for me right now?
Sure. What I would ask, if you want a reading, if you can give me a specific question, I would love that.
So let's ask about the podcast and 2024, because I think this is what not only I, but also everybody who's listening cares about.
Okay. What about the podcast and what about 2024?
So how's the podcast going to develop this year, or what can I do for this podcast so it's going to be amazing? And are we on the right track? What needs to be done? Yeah.
I love that you followed that up with the second question, and I'll share why, and then I'll answer your question. But so often people come to me for readings and they go, tell me about my love life, or tell me about my 2024. And as cool as that is, this is where my transformational side comes in and goes, well, part of 2024 is you showing up and you showing up for that. And I think so often people want a reading and they kind of want to feel cool or important or like, which is great, but it's also combining that with the transformational aspect and going, I'm less interested on if uh, this happens a lot with relationships. They'll go, will me and Marco, will we make it? Will we be together forever? And I'm like, I actually, with all due respect, I don't give a fuck if you're together forever because that question isn't empowering. Meaning, I'm more excited about you becoming the version of yourself that is okay if you're not together forever. So
yeah, and what you mean is it also that my year 2024 is not written somewhere fixed now already. It also
exactly,
depends on what I do.
exactly. And what I love to guide people towards is I want to guide that person towards the version of themselves that will create the most amazing year.
Yes, the most
So
amazing podcast, please.
woo! To answer your question though, let me see. So what I hear, what I get the sense of, and I'll start here is podcasting might not be your forever thing, but it feels very important because it's going to introduce you to certain people that I feel like are going to open up certain doors, especially this year. And I don't know how else I can say it besides I feel like there are going to be certain conversations that you have this year on your podcast that are going to be very instrumental, very game changing for you and open up doors. And two other things. Obviously, continue to show up and bring your fullest to your podcast and continue to bring people on that are just unconventional. Maybe even people you're afraid to bring on or people that you feel like might have a very different opinion from you. What else? Uh, yeah, the only other thing is just trust your gut with every single person that comes onto your podcast. If you feel like someone isn't meant to be on your podcast, just shifting that. Yeah. There's so much more I could say. There's so much more I could go into, but just based on that question, that's what I have to share at the moment.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah. Shall I share a bit what came up for me?
Sure, please.
Yeah. So what you said that podcast is not, my ultimate thing, the ultimate goal. I think that's very likely, I do this podcast since many years, and if it was supposed to be Germany's spirituality podcast #1, I think it would have been that already.
Yeah.
But I don't know why, and it doesn't matter, but I feel like I need to continue this podcast.
And
I
there's
had
been
many times where I thought, but I have
yes,
to continue it. And this year also, last year I didn't have that many interviews. This year I want to have more interviews again. Or conversations. I want to connect with more people also through this podcast. Yeah.
there's been so many things in my life where I used to beat myself up because I would start something and then I wouldn't finish it. But I realized that it's kind of like, frogs, they have those lily pads and they jump from one pad to the other. But by jumping from one pad to the other, it actually takes them to where they need to go.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I've experienced these things. And that's kind of the vibe that I feel from the reading that I gave you. It's you might be on this lily pad for the next 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, whatever the case may be. But it's going to bring you perfectly to the next lily pad. And it's going to give you tools, knowledge, connections, open doors that you wouldn't have had you stopped right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I think is also an important message here also for other people, is that
it can be right to do something, even if it doesn't look or feel or seem like it's the biggest, ultimate breakthrough, whatever. Like also things that are medium good from results and from how they feel to you could be very meaningful and important.
Sure.
Because the other, then we are just like always searching for the highs and the peaks and the breakthroughs. And before the breakthrough, there's a plateau that doesn't feel exciting. And it's also important to live there and to keep going, no?
I'll say this because I think it's so fitting for what you just shared. Learning to love the moments that aren't necessarily exciting, right? So I was having a conversation with my friend yesterday. I usually, when I do dishes, for example, I don't like doing dishes. I don't like when it's late at night and I have a pile of dishes in my sink and I know you have to wash them, Kyle. But what I've done and what I've realized is, well, you're probably going to be washing dishes for a long fucking time, Kyle. So you might as well learn to enjoy it. So every time I'm washing dishes, I'm either listening to music or talking to a friend. I love talking to my friends while I wash my dishes because it makes it so much easier. So the more you can learn to fall in love with the things and to trust those little things that might not feel the most exciting or the most transformational or like a 25-minute ice bath, you learn to have a greater appreciation for all of life. And if I can bring joy to those little moments, my life becomes more joyful, and that's amazing.
Yeah. All right. The last few words I want to give to you. But before that, I want to say truly thank you for your honesty, that you also could make me feel so comfortable that I could ask all the questions that I felt like I want to ask. It was really nice to talk to you and to get to know you like this. And your work is very meaningful to me. I love all your videos. I love to see that. And yeah, thank you also for your reading that you just gave me. I'm going to re-listen through the year and maybe also at the end of the year. And then I'm going to understand what you just told me.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much. It was so nice to have you and to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an amazing chat.
All right, that was it. Pussy, Mind and Soul with Kyle Lipton. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Pussy, Mind and Soul is mainly in German, but I have a few really, really good English episodes with international guests. I'm going to link some below if you want to listen to more. As always, I appreciate your feedback. If there's anything you want to share with me, if something came up, or if you have an idea for a collaboration, always feel free to reach out and don't be surprised if I answer. Okay, enjoy your day and see you in the next episode. Bye!